Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll start this Bava daf Kuf Mem Tes. We're going to begin on Kuf Mem Tes with Aleph, the fourth line from the top, where we are posing a question, Iboilahu. So we learned in the Mishnah back on Kuf Mem Vav and Beis that when it comes to a Shchimira, someone who is on their last legs dying, and they write all of their possessions to someone else, but if they leave karka koshahu, if they leave a little bit for themselves, we say that it must be that if he gets healthy, that it's actually a matana, because he obviously thought the fact that he decided to keep something for himself, that he had a chance he was actually going to live. And therefore, the fact that he gave some of his property away, it's a good gift. However, it was sheer karka koshahu, if let's say he left nothing in matnaso kayemas, because it's an umdana, that it's self-understood is only because I think I'm going to die. However, in the chance that he comes and he's healthy again, so then without matana is not good. So that's the general din of our Mishnah. To iboil who mocher kol nechasamahu. What if this person instead sold all of his possessions? This is going to be question 4b, question TA13, TB14. So let's look in the Rashba. Yomi b'chelyai, he said in his illness, Sadeh umayis halolu shilpoinihin. Actually, that's not the case. Okay, we don't have this. There's no Rashbam on this page. Fine. So actually, let's just keep going. So Omer Rabbi Yehuda Marav im Amad in a chayzer. If let's say he gets healthy, he cannot retract. It's the mechira is a mechira. V'zimnin Omer Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Sometimes we actually heard the name of Rav the im Amad chayzer. So it sounds like an obvious contradiction by the same person. Little piggy actually is not an argument. It just depends on the situation. Ha de isnehu lazuzi b'nayu. Ha de parinhu b'chayvai. It all depends. Does this person still have his money here, says the Rashbam? If he still has the original money of sale, says the Rashbam, then he can retract on the sale, because that's the reason why he left it, because in his mind he thought, if I ever get healthy, then I want my land back, and therefore I'm going to give him back my money. However, Hada Parinu B'chayvo, the other one is where he used it to pay up all of his debts. In that situation, he's not chayzer. Iboihu. So now the Gemara asks another question. Shchimira shahoidamahu. So let's say he admits that the assets belong to another person, while it's actually well-known fact that that's not the case, but actually he's the owner of it. So how does that work? Says the Rashbam, this actually belongs to someone else. It's actually a well-known fact that it does not belong to this other person, it belongs to him. So the reason why he maybe just said this, that it belongs to someone else, is shul has bia as banav, so as not to satiate his children. Once he admits, he admits. In other words, maybe he was just doing it to kind of give the impression that he doesn't have anything, so his kids aren't going to be so reliant on him, let's say. However, the truth is that it does still belong to him. Or do we say, no, the fact that he says this, even though it's a chazaka that he really is the owner, not this other person, but the fact he said it, maybe that's enough. So Tashma. So to answer the question, we bring the following story, and the Rashbam already gives us a little bit of a spoiler alert. Umaskana dehoidas hoida. We're going to end up seeing that his admission is enough, and therefore the mitzias is that this individual, even though it's a chazaka, still belongs to him. The fact that he admits that the assets belong to another person, we say that taka belongs to the other person. Okay. So we'll see in a second this piece. So the Isser Giyur Havoy Havile Triaser Alfi Zuzi. So this person by the name of Isser, who was a convert, he had 12,000 zuzim. Be'rava Rav Mori Bere Harasai. Now he had this money, Now, even though he did have a child, but Berei, his son, was Hodasa Shabakadusha Vlidas Bikadusha Havoy. He was a child that was born Bikadusha, but he was not conceived Bikadusha. In other words, he had his mother, let's call it his significant other, he had relations with her while she was not a Yid, and then while she was pregnant, she ended up converting. So that's a status of a child who is Horaso Shlo B'Kedusha V'Lidaso B'Kedusha boy. And therefore, because of that, the din is that this child is not going to have the ability to be able to be koinit from the father. So therefore, we now look at this ger who died, it's like he has no yorshim, and therefore, because of that, whatever's he has is hefker, and someone could acquire it. So, ubei Rav Havoy, and in the yeshiva, Omer Rava Hechi Nikninu Rav Mari Lahani Zuzi. So this person, Rav Mari, wanted to be able to acquire this, right? So that was the question. That how does he acquire it? So you say, Ibi Yerusha la Bar Yerushahu. He's not a Bar Yerusha. So let's immediately go into the Rashba. So if you make yourself like you are the one who has an obligation, so you definitely did it to act like you're poor. That's why he was moida that it belonged to someone else. But the money is still here, when it belongs to someone else, you can maybe think that maybe he gave it to him before he was dying. Maybe he was kind it first on behalf of someone else. So says the Rashbam, Isser, who Isser Giyaira, that was his name. He was Isser, that was his name, who was a convert. Shmuel Rachel Bas Mar Shmuel. So Kaidim Shizgair. So this took place that he had relations with this woman before the conversion. But this Abra Himenu Begeus, and she was therefore pregnant while not Jewish. As Rav Mari Bar Rachel. And then while she was pregnant, she converted. Yachach nolad Rav Mari. And then she gave birth to Rav Mari. So this person, Rav Mari, was Hoylid B'Kedusha, but the Horaso Shlo B'Kedusha. Okay, so on this, Rabbi posed the question, how you can be kaina. He says, "V'hilkach ani zoich behen." I Rava, because this Rav Mari character can't acquire it because it's not really a Yerusha. So therefore, "Hilkach ani zoich behen." I should be able to acquire this because again, the monies were given over to Be'erava, and Rav Mari, his son, was again Harasa Shabakdusha. So therefore, Rava was in the impression that he should be the one who acquires the stuff. Why? Says Rashbam, the nechsi ager dinan kehefker. His possessions like ownerless. V'harahin biyadi. This money's in my hand. V'hini kaidim b'zaycha. So I should be the one who gets it. Ger lav bas orosehu, because you can't say that it should go to Rav Mari because he's not someone who's shaykh to inherit Yerusha. So he's not shaykh to Yerusha. Says Rashbam, can go in Rav Mari. So Rav Mari berei horasim. So ubei Rav Havi was in the yeshiva of Rav. So Amar Rav, and he said, "Hechen niknu Rav Mari lahani zuzi." There's no way he should be able to acquire this because he Yerusha bar Yerushahu, because he was conceived not with kedusha, so he's not shaykh to Yerusha. Iba matana, let's say it was a gift. So matna shchimira kirusha shavar banan. This is considered to be like a gift, and it has the same level as Yerusha. The fact that he gave this money to me, so therefore it's ki'ilu like I'm the Yerush. Kol heichad isei b'Yerusha Isiba matana. Kol heicha delesa birusha leisa matana. Anytime where it's shaykh to have a kinyan through Yerusha, gam matana. Anytime where there's no possibility of Yerusha, like here, also the Shechem Yerah doesn't have the ability to give us a gift. Let's say to his son. Iba Mashiach leistel gabe. It's not possible for him to do Mashiach because it's not here. It's not around. The money's not in the house of Isser, that he can just do so. Iba Chalipin in Matbeya Nikna B'Chalipin. We know, as born in Masechtas Bava Metzia and Parak Hazav learned, that you cannot do Chalipin with money. So Igav Karka, let's say you can do it through a Kinyan Agav, because as the Goren Kedushin says, you can acquire land, and while you're acquiring the land, you can acquire the Metalton as well. It's a Kinyan Agav. So that's brought down in, again, Masechtas Kedushin, Avchavav. So Igav Karka, Leisle Ara. You have to have land. This guy doesn't have land to be able to do it. Iba Mamad Shloshton, let's say it's the din of Mamad Shloshton, says the Rashba, Mani, Isser, Rab Mari, I, Isser, and Rab Mari, Biyachad, all come together, Nifgad, Umafgid, Makabel Matana, so it could work through a Mamad Shloshton. So, Isha Chli was Lina. If you send to me to go after Isser, I'm not going to go, because I realize that if I go, then that's the one way I can lose this money and it can go to him. So it's only Ba'amayim Shloshtem, but I'm not going to go because I'm one holding the monies, and I know that if I go, I can lose this money. So therefore, that's what he suggested. So Maske Lo Rav Ika Beredu Rav Ami, he said, Amai. Understand why do we say, says the Rashbam, Lo Timsa Inyan Shoichel Rav Mori Uzachis? How is it Shaykh that you're going to say that he has no ability to acquire? Veloidi Isser, why doesn't Isser, the Ger, admit the Halain Zuze the Rav Mari Ninhu? Like we just said before, that even if, let's say, he has a chazaka that it belongs to him, but it doesn't make any difference. We said possibly that once you're moide, kivan to hoidi hoidi, so the fact that it should go to Rav Mari. Like Ninu Ba'odisa, and he should be able to acquire it through his admission. So maybe that in itself is a raya that it doesn't work, and therefore it does belong to the person. Therefore, it doesn't go to Ramari, and therefore that's a raya why he shouldn't get it. So Adahachi, in the meanwhile, Nafik Odisa Mebe Isser. So Odisa went out this Odisa, says Rashbam, Mitaych Shenemer Bebeis Medrash Yatza Koil V'Imduhu Litoin Kain. So they actually learned how to make this admission that Isser should actually admit, just like was suggested, as a possibility, because this is what was said in the base Medrash. Oh, if you would do this, it would work, that Rav Mari would acquire it. So Ikbid Rava obviously got upset because he actually taught them the taina which can cause them to lose. Omer Kamagamri Tainasali Inshi Umafsidili. Understand, you're causing people to learn the proper taina to say in order for me to lose out. As we continue to Kuf Mem Tes Omid Beis. And that's basically the end of that sugya. Okay, so says the let's start off with question 4b. So again, it depends. If the money's still there, then he could be chayzer. If the money's not around, if let's say he paid his chayiv with it, then ain't no chayzer. Question 5. Shchimira hamoide sheshel ploini chayiv etzlo. A shchimira who says that there's a chayiv by him, or shemoide shemois halil shel ploini, the money belongs to someone else. Him hodasa hayda. So you actually need, it says Rashi over here. I think it should be Rashbam. Okay, so you say like this: B'chayiv ein hodasa hayda. By an obligation, it's not a hoida. Kivan amrinan shlo hishbias banav omer kain. Hishbias banav omer kain. Maybe he only did this in order to save for his children. But mois be'enam hoidasoi hada. However, when it comes to money, which is here hoidasa hoida. So it actually is a good hoida. That's what we see from this story, that you could actually make this taina, and therefore by making this taina, so therefore all of a sudden it will go to Ramari. So therefore we see, again, when it comes to mois, be'eno, if the money's here, then hoidasa hoida, then the taka is a good hoida. However, again, if it was for a chov, then it's ein hoidasa hoida. Okay. Look at the Rashbam. So he said, Maskana hoidasa hoida. Let's see. So he says, Umaskana adam asui shul hasbias banav. We said maskana, person would maybe do this so his children would not be satiated. Upatum l'shalom v'hachamrin de'azlin b'asar hoidas piv. Okay. All right. Let's keep on going now. So the Gemara says like this: Shir karka kol shehu. If let's say he the Shechem Yirah left something for himself, then we say it's considered to be a matana. But what does it mean kol shehu? So shir karka kol shehu matnasu kayemes. So kama kol shehu. How much is that? So Rabbi Yehuda Marav karka kedei parnasasai. When it comes to karka, it's kedei parnasasai, enough for one's livelihood. Rabbi Yirmiyah Barabba Omer metalton kedei parnasasai. That even if he would not have left karka, but even if he would have left metalton, that would also be considered to be enough. So Omer Rav Zera kama mechuvanim shmaisisa desabi. How says Rashbam, it's actually not so clear, according to the one who says that it's referring to metalton, but rather according to the one who says karka, because karka taimamai. Why, if he left over a small amount of land, we say that it's a gift, because the ikoi samachale, because he could live off that land and survive. So metalton nami ikoi samach iluhu. So actually, you can learn out that the same din should happen when it comes to metalton, because why didn't he leave metalton? For the same thing, so he can live off the land, live off this metalton. So therefore, according to this, maybe it's actually logical not to make a distinction between karka and metalton. So Maskam Rav Yosef v'may kavanta mandi oimer metalton karka tanan mandi oimer k'dei parnasaso koshu tanan. I don't understand. First of all, the Mishnah says karka. Karka. It's obviously coming to exclude metalton. So why would you say that metalton is the same thing as karka? And also it says koshehu. So why would you say it's kardei parnasasai? It says apparently even a small amount. So how could we say that this is a great answer? It seems not to be a great answer. It doesn't seem to be the proper reading of our Mishnah. So he says like this: V'chol heicha. Anytime in our Mishnah, the Tani karka davka, you really want to tell me that anytime it says karka, it's only land? I'm going to show you in Masechtas Peah, not like that. What tanan? A person who wrote all of his possessions to his slave, Yatsa bin Chayrin, then he gets to go free. Says Rashbam, Shari ha'eved b'chla nechasim. Since you sold everything, right, you gave everything away to your Eved, included in that is the asset of him, the Eved. V'nimsa shehiknul Eved eskufo im shanachasim, and therefore the Eved acquires himself as well. However, shir karka kol shehu lo yotzim ben chayrin. However, if he left, it just said that I'm going to leave something. He says chutz mekarka kol shehu. So in that situation, he cannot go free because we know that an Eved is hukish l'karkois, and therefore because of that, it's possible when he said, except for a small portion or parcel of land, that's actually, he was referring to the Eved himself, which means he said that you can acquire everything except for you yourself. And therefore we now know that whatever an Eved owns, it really goes back to the master. And therefore he's not going to get his freedom. And therefore, says the Rashbam, if you would say that, it should be the same thing. The Dilma Hai Eved who Hamataltlin Shishir the Avda Mataltli. In certain respects, an Eved is like Mataltlin. And therefore, if you would have said this statement, it could be that again you're including the Eved as that which you're holding back. Avol says the Rashbam, Im Omer Kol Nechasayin Nesun Mucha Chutz Masada Ploni. You say except for a particular field, and you say this field Harihu Ben Chayrin, he'll go free. Sheve'enu Mechlal Oisa Sada Shepirish. It's only because you said it in a generic fashion. However, if you specified, I'm not giving you this field, so he does become free because he's not included in that. Anyway, we do see that sometimes when we say karka, it's not karka mamish. So maybe that's something we can derive from here, that even though our Mishnah says karka koshu, it could actually be referring to metalton. Again, that's what it means. The kaisib kol nechasel la'avdu yas ben chayrin. Shir karka koshu or yas ben chayrin. Shimon omer loyal hu ben chayrin. He'll still go free. And she omer kol nechasel nesun l'ploini avdi. That everything is going to my eved chutz mi echad mi revuah shebehen, except for a certain percentage. So in that situation, the Rashbam says, because if you are sheer karka koshu, that comes to imply land and not your eved. Until you said it in a very plain way, stam, and you said that everything is given over except for a particular percentage. So that language of echad, chutz mi echad mi revuah shebehen, could be including your eved. So according to him, it is in fact the eved would go free outside of that one possibility. As we continue to kuf nun amud aleph, the Yom Rav Dimi bar Yosef Yom Rav Elazar also metaltlin shir eitzel eved, v'also metaltlin shir eitzel ketubah. Says the Rashbam, af agav the ketani shir karka koshahu. Even though we said that if you exclude a piece of land, lo yotze ben chayrin, this eved can't go free. Hu adin im shir metaltlin koshahu. Also, if you'd say that I'm leaving some metaltlin, the avdinami ka metaltlin dami, because again, in certain respects, an eved, or this machloikus, is an eved like land, or in some regards like metaltlin. So also when it comes to metaltlin, it would have the same din that he wouldn't go free. Says the Rashbam, shahari einu mechubel karka. He's not exactly like land because he's not attached to the ground. The karle b'nei adam metaltli, people are called metaltlin alma. What do we see from all this? Karka, even though he learned the Mishnah and pay about karka, doesn't mean it's lav davka, means only land. Elahu din metaltli. The din of metaltli is the same. Mastisa nami, also when it comes to our Mishnah, metaltli kedem parnasaso kimikarkoi kedem parnasaso dami. So the fact that our Mishnah says karka koshu, it doesn't necessarily mean only karka. It could be metaltlin, and therefore it's not really a question. However, then we just have this other piece which we have to see. So it's brought down explicitly in Masechtas Peah in a previous, and it's also previously in our parak, that he says like this: a person writes his possessions to his kids, the ishto karka koshahu, and he also writes to his wife that she should get some land. So the fact that it was written this way, that will cause her to lose the ksuba. And some people explain that's a case of b'shei sekes. That's when she was silent. Since the wife is like a partner now among the children of the ksubasa, she lost her ksuba. Devahi karka koshu shishirla, the land that he left for her, shlonas levanav, that was not given over to the kids, machal ksubasa, that caused her to be moichel on the ksuba. V'davka karka koshu, that's only by land. Of a shirla of a custom of metaltli kol shehu lo ibdik subasa. If instead he would have said about metaltlin, she would not lose her ksuba. It's only when it comes to karka that she would end up losing her ksuba. The ksuba ikar goyim karkoi v'lo metaltlin, because the ksuba is really linked to land, and therefore if he mentioned land, so therefore she could lose her ksuba. But if he mentioned metaltlin, she's not going to lose her ksuba because the ksuba is linked to karka and not metaltlin, as the Masechtas ksuba says. Hilkoch karkoi samcha daite. Okay, she's samech das on land. Okay. So anyway, what do we see? Again, that's just like a sidebar, but we see from here, clearly the din is that even though it says karka, it's lav davka. No hasam, but din hudaloi, lisni, karka. The truth is, it didn't have to say karka. Rabbi Tani Reisha, Rabbi Kiva Omer, karka koshu, chayavas mepeya, Rabbi Korim, since we already mentioned land by the sheet of Rabbi Kiva, he says that any amount of land you're chayav in pay and bikurim. So v'lichtav prusbul, and also to write a prusbul on it. The liknos imahen nechasim she'ein behem achrayis because of Hashem Chazaka, which is the King Agav. V'shemachin katani karka. That's the reason why we mentioned karka over there. So the truth is, you're right. It mentions karka even though it's lav dafka over there. So therefore, it says karka, could have been metaltalin, but we only said it as just along the way. However, why did our Mishnah have to say the word karka dafka? And maybe it really is only karka. That's the idea. Says the Rashba. The idea of tiny reish masechtas peir b'kiva oimer karka koshu chayavs peir b'kurim with a little prusvul liknosim hen nechasim shen b'achrayis because of shavosaka the king agav dahani kuhu dafkimer karkoi. All those, it's only land v'lo metaltali. So tani name is sever karka afagav dehu adin b'sever metaltali. Even though the truth is, it could work for metaltalin, but since the other cases where it's only with karka, again, like for example, to write a prusbul regarding shmitas ksafim, it has to be that the loiva has land. That's a milsa de shchicha, and therefore, because of that, if he has metaltalin, no prusbul would work. So there it was dafkas. Therefore, we had to write also over here in the sefer rather the same thing. However, our Mishnah didn't have to write karka. So the fact that it said karka, maybe taka is dafka. V'chol heicha, back in the Gemara, the tani kolshu, is it true that anytime it says the words kolshu, leis le shiura, you really think there's like no measurement at all? That it means that even the smallest portion, and it's not kadei parnasasai? Vantanan, Reb Daisa ben Horkinus Oimer, he says cholish v'chelois geizes mana uparas chayavas bereishis and gaze. In order to have to give to the Kohen the first of your shearings, it has to be a measurement of chamish rechelois, 5 sheep, geizes that you shear a mana upras. V'chachamim oimrim chamish rechelos geizes kol shehain. Here it says the word kol shehain. V'amrina v'kama kol shehain amarav mana upras ubavad shihu mechumashois. Provided that it's 1/5 each from all of the 5 total. So the fact is, when it comes to ratios and gaze, even though he says kolshu, it doesn't necessarily mean the smallest amount. There still can be a shear. So too, when our Mishnah says kolshu, maybe it doesn't mean the smallest amount of land. Maybe it is kadei parnasasa. No hasam adinhu dolo lisni kolshu. Didn't have to say that language. Because the first guy mentioned a very large shear, Armihu nami sheared zutra, karle kolshu. Because he was just comparing a large amount of wool shearings to a small amount. Therefore, he said kol shehu, because in comparison to a lot, a little is like a kol shehu. But our Mishnah, which says only kol shehu, it's probably davka. That's how we read this. Okay, let's look at question 6 and possibly question 7. Mahu shir hakarka shim shaira shchimira b'matnasai hari matnasu matana. Fine. So he said, our Mishnah said, our Gemara said, Kadei Parnasasa, enough for his part to be satiated. The Yeshamim Kolshu, some say even the smallest amount. Ayin Rosh, Simchavav, Ayin Rashbam, Kuf Nun Amid Beis, Di Ramadchal Omer Rava. Okay, so that is that. Turn to question 7. Also Matalton Shir Eitzel Eved, Mishum Delav Krois Gita. Okay, we didn't do that yet. Then what does it say afterwards? Madua shir matalton lav kros gita hu o avna kamar card kaidami. So okay, this is, we didn't really do this, but again we're touching upon it. We're going to see the answer to this really in tomorrow's daf. Let's see, question 14. No. Question TB 15. Also matalton shir etzel eved madua in raya mized the abda kimitatali. Okay, we're gonna hold off on that one as well. Adkan.